After years of waiting, Paralives is finally here. And while everyone else is focused on the build tools and the color wheel, I've been digging into the actual town of Melino and the lore hidden in the game. Because beneath the idyllic, cozy surface of this town, the developers are laying the groundwork for some serious neighborhood drama. We're talking picture-perfect families cracking under pressure, bitter corporate rivalries, and a single dad harboring a massive unspoken secret. The game is still deep in early access, and yes, there are glitches and missing features that we'll touch on at the very end. But today, we're doing what we do best, unraveling the story. So if you love learning about lore, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Now, grab your train ticket, pet the good girl Stella, and let's explore the complete history of Paralives. The game kicks off on a train ride into the coastal town of Melino. Visually, the town is a melting pot of European architecture, but the Old Town district is deeply inspired by Quebec, where the developers are based out of. You've got narrow streets, stone townhouses, and even a small castle hinting at some deep medieval origins. But when you cross into the industrial district, the vibe completely shifts. It's a graveyard of old factories and abandoned warehouses, proving this place went through an industrial boom that has long since dried out. Wrap all of that around rural farmlands, dense forests, and a massive park overlooking the skyline, and you have a map that actually feels lived in. And lived in might be an understatement. Between the boarded up windows, the graffiti tags, and vandalism, it's obvious Melino is a town in decline and the residents aren't happy. Speaking of residents, Melino is packed with households, and every single one of them has a story waiting to be told. While on the train, the game gives you 11 unique households to choose from. And if you want immediate tension, you have to start with the Preston-Beaumonts. On the surface, they're a picture-perfect family, but behind closed doors, they're completely cracking under the pressure. The household is run by Pauline, a homemaker who's dead serious, a bit of a neat freak, and runs an impossibly tight ship. This immediately puts her at odds with her husband, Gerald. Gerald is an audio engineer who's completely drowning trying to balance his studio hours with his home life. Plus, he's a bit of a slob who's constantly cracking jokes, the exact opposite of his wife. Caught in the middle of this is their eldest daughter, Zoe. She's drowning in teenage angst, and her tanking school grades absolutely reflect it. She just wants to be left alone in her room, which puts her on a constant collision course with Pauline's strict rules and need for control. And then there's the youngest, baby Adrian, who's honestly just happy to vibe amidst the absolute chaos of his family. Then there's Julien Gervais, a total workaholic gunning for the top spot as creative director at Clickwork Industries. His absolute obsession with his career has sparked a cutthroat rivalry with the operations director, Samantha Stark. Samantha is just as fiercely ambitious, and Julien's rapid rise through the company has made her absolutely despise him. But here's where the lore gets juicy. It turns out Julien has started to realize that his obsession with Samantha isn't purely competitive anymore. Whether this enemies to lovers workplace drama ends in a romance or a total career meltdown is going to be incredibly fun to play out. If you need a break from the drama, we have Florence and Faye O'Reilly, who are honestly living the absolute dream. They've been happily married for 30 years and are finally enjoying their retirement. With the daily grind behind them, Florence spends her days tending to her garden while Faye kicks back and spins her favorite vinyl records. But my favorite detail about this couple is that they're both naturally sloppy. After 3 decades together, they're so completely comfortable with each other that they just don't care about keeping a pristine, perfect house anymore. Now, if you want proof that opposites attract in Melino, look no further than Soline Darcier and Kian B. Cross. On paper, this household should completely implode. Soline is a florist who's neat, energetic, and an early bird. Her entire aesthetic is pink sundresses and cupcakes. Kian, on the other hand, is a cook over at Chez Maurice. He's a gloomy, sloppy night owl whose entire world revolves around motorcycles and heavy metal. But despite their radical differences, the two could not be more obsessed with each other. They actively participate in each other's worlds, meaning you have Soline happily throwing elbows in heavy metal mosh pits and Kian at home piping black icing onto her cupcakes. Now, if you're looking for a little more toxicity in your gameplay, let me introduce you to Lian Reed. Lian is a highly charismatic schmoozer who can talk his way into getting absolutely anything he wants. He works as a trainer at the local gym and is a massive health nut. But let's just call a spade here. Between the gym job, the abs, and the manipulative charm, Lian is essentially the Don Lothario of Melino. He's your standard textbook fuckboy, and he's gonna absolutely ruin some marriages in your save file. If you want to play a character who's plugged into absolutely everyone's business, you need to look at Anisa Nasser. She's the popular local barista over at the Creme Cafe, and because she knows everyone in town by name, she's effectively the eyes and ears of Melino. But when she isn't working the espresso machine, she keeps things pretty low-key, spending her free time just chilling out and playing her guitar. If you want some cozy gameplay instead, let me introduce you to Kareem Barnes. He's the kind of guy who just takes life at his own pace. He's a museum tour guide, an avid reader, and a quiet romantic who's just searching for the one. And he actually starts the game as friends with Tyrie Strong. By day, she's an engine programmer for Parallel Studios. But when she logs off, she's a brilliant musician, a champion for creative freedom and equality, and she runs an entire DIY tattoo shop right out of her house. Is Tyrie Kareem's future soulmate? Time will tell. If you want to play out a classic quarter-life crisis, you have to check out the best friend trio of Rebecca Wolf, Bianca Shaw, and Monica Aoki. Growing up, these three were the absolute life of the party, but now they're slamming headfirst into the reality of adulthood. They're struggling to balance their chaotic social lives while working retail gigs across Melino at the antique shop, the hair salon, and the general store. Rebecca is a gloomy musician, Bianca is a high-energy artist, and Monica is a serious foodie. But here's the absolute best part about this household. When you match their personalities up with their specific hairstyles and color palettes, it becomes incredibly obvious what the developers did here. This isn't just a random group of roommates. This is literally the Powerpuff Girls trying to survive their 20s. Also, their apartment is ridiculous, and a mishmash of holiday decorations and kid toys. Finally, we have to talk about Sebastian Marquez. On the surface, he's just a wholesome single dad trying to run the best Italian restaurant in Melino while raising his son Eli. His biography says he spends most of his free time outdoors picking fresh vegetables or hiking with his boy. But that exact same bio explicitly states that getting to know Sebastian reveals a hidden, unexpected secret. If you actually visit his house and go down into his basement, you'll find a hidden passageway. This secret tunnel exits straight into the ancient medieval ruins near the town hall. There's actually an entire network of secret tunnels running across Melino. If you head over to the town hall and go up to the 3rd floor, you'll find a hidden section of the tower with a literal dead body hidden up there. That corpse marks the entrance to a massive puzzle that, as you navigate it, will uncover some genuinely unsettling imagery and dark secrets that completely shatter the cozy aesthetics of this game. But if you actually manage to survive the maze and reach the end, you're rewarded with a treasure chest. And what grand prize is waiting inside? A pet rock. It's a literal rock wearing a tiny crown and covered in lipstick kisses. His name is Enroque, which is the Spanish word for the chess move castling. It's a completely unhinged reward for surviving a murder maze, but oh my god, he is absolutely adorable. Aside from those on the train, there are plenty of other townies filling out Melino. And while we don't have their official backstories yet, we can piece together their lore just by looking at their houses. Over in the Old Town district, we have Sarah Lavigne. She's a receptionist at the clinic, but if you look closely at her nightstand, it's completely covered in different prescription bottles, which is hinting that she might quietly be battling a serious illness, all while trying to raise her young son, Orion. Right next door, you have the Chen family living very comfortably. Jean is a tech director at Mappleweb Inc., his wife Sharon is a high school teacher, and their kids are absolute nerds. Their teenage daughter Anne is heavily into anime, and her older brother Johan works as a front-end developer for their dad. But judging by the swords, shields, and D&D dice scattered around his room, he's definitely running a homebrew tabletop campaign on the weekends. Nearby, Jason Cooper, a celebrity fitness trainer, is hiding out in town with his wife Sophia, who works as a hospital nurse. Just down the street, Camille Harper is living with her retired mother, Kate. Kate spends her golden years painting, while Camille makes her living as a professional pianist working in the studio right alongside Gerald. But if you want the juiciest neighborhood drama, you have to look at the Pelletiers. Roger manages the local restaurant Chez Maurice, and his wife Natalia is an elementary school teacher. Their son Noah is failing his classes, crushing hard on Ann Chen, and spending his time building custom PCs. But Noah's grades are the absolute least of this family's worries. Right outside on the sidewalk, someone has spray painted the word liar in massive letters. When you go inside, their main bedroom is right in the middle of being packed up. Up on the third floor, another separate room is completely filled with moving boxes. It screams that a messy, sudden separation is happening. Did one of them cheat? The relationship panels don't show any affair partners yet, which makes this an incredibly compelling mystery just waiting for us to play out. If you leave the cozy neighborhoods and head over to the industrial district, here you'll find Marcus and Cindy Stanton doing absolutely everything they can just to keep their heads above water. Cindy works as a nursing supervisor at the hospital, and Marcus is a security guard at the museum and library. But if you look at their history panels, you can see a long string of lost jobs. It's a really brutal detail showing this family has fallen on hard times. Things are so tight that their young son Jake has actually picked up a job working as a janitor at the exact same museum as his dad just to help make ends meet. Their youngest daughter, Justine, is still in elementary school, and she spends her free time playing with Nalia Vargas and Eli Marquez. Just down the street, you'll find Jonathan Gibbs living with his partner, Armin Lim, and their daughter, Sasha Lim Gibbs. Jonathan is an engine programmer working alongside his colleague, Tyrie Strong. Meanwhile, Armin is a digital marketing designer surviving the corporate crossfire between Julien and Samantha. Despite having very different personalities, Jonathan and Armin are doing incredibly well for themselves and are raising their daughter in a wonderfully stable, happy home. On the outskirts of town, in the rural countryside, we have a plethora of families. Elder Emma Wake lives a secluded life near the abandoned lighthouse. She was clearly a boat captain in her early years, and her house has stayed relatively untouched in all that time. Sadly, on the second floor of her home is a nursery that is entirely packed up, implying she may have lost a child in pregnancy. On the cliffs nearby, a ship's wheel surrounded by candles and an empty wine glass shows Emma, after all this time, continues to grieve. Across the street, Asha and Rahul Patel are extremely reclusive empty nesters. Rahul is the museum curator and Asha works as a hospital janitor. They're friends with the Stanton family, but if you actually look at their house, you realize something is deeply wrong. There are trash bags littering the yard, and the inside is in a state of absolute ruin. It doesn't look like they're just messy, it looks like they've completely given up. Inside, there's a fully furnished bedroom clearly belonging to a young boy. You can find scattered toys and even an asthma inhaler left out on the nightstand. But when you check the household roster, there's absolutely no child living there. In fact, there's no younger Patel to be found anywhere. Is this just an early access oversight, or is this deliberate environmental storytelling hinting at an absolutely devastating tragedy? Unfortunately, we just don't know yet. To give us all a desperately needed palate cleanser, let me introduce you to Maggie Vaughan. She's the resident baddie of Melino, and she conveniently lives right next to the gym. By day, she's a highly successful astronomer working for the local space agency, but by night, she loves to loaf around and play Dungeons & Dragons with her friend Derek Lang. Derek lives above the Story Nook bar. He's a mission coordinator at the space agency and is super into Miki, the famous Vocaloid. He also may be transgender based on the flag, but he could just be an ally. Rounding out the suburbs, we have the Camara family. On paper, they're just a massive, hardworking household. Marvin manages the local clothing store, and his wife Amelia is an environmental research supervisor over at the university. Their daughter Jada works right alongside her dad as a store clerk, their middle daughter Tina works as a waitress for Sebastian, and their youngest Dana is still navigating high school. Their eldest daughter Shania has moved out and can still be found roaming the town. Over on the outskirts of town, we have Antoine Dubois and Rose Moreau. These two lovebirds are recently engaged, living in a gorgeous cottage near the forest, and are the absolute definition of cottagecore. Antoine is the lead pianist working alongside Gerald and Camille, and Rose is an environmental artist at Parallel Studios with Tyrie and Jonathan, while also picking up shifts as a high school art teacher. Based on their massive house and cozy vibe, they're clearly gearing up to expand their family very soon. But right next door, you have their incredibly wealthy neighbors, the de Belcourts. They're the complete opposite vibe. Paul is a manager at one of the fancy restaurants in town, while his wife Laura is a gloomy homemaker who seems to be the only thing keeping the family from falling apart. Their son Vincent is your standard gym bro who runs entirely on coffee. But their eldest daughter Juliette has this amazing spooky gamer aesthetic, and she works as a system engineer at Clickwork Industries. Nearby, the Vargas family runs Susan's General Store. Dario is a serious, hardworking man, and he and his wife Paloma are big supporters of green energy. Their daughter Nayla isn't doing so great in school, but loves to spend time with Justine. Finally, sitting high above everyone else, we have the Kim siblings Sujin and Haeyeon. Their massive high society home literally overlooks the entire town. Sujin works as a doctor at the hospital, and Haeyeon is a waiter at the exact same fancy restaurant as Paul. Despite their prime real estate, however, these two mostly keep to themselves. There are plenty of other roaming townies scattered around Melino, but as far as I can tell, they're mostly just there to make the world feel lived in. When you look at the big picture, Paralives is shaping up to deliver an incredible display of lore and environmental storytelling that honestly might truly outshine The Sims. But the brutal reality of the current build is that the actual gameplay loop is incredibly tedious. Having to perform an action and then fast forward time until you can perform the next one is bad design. And when you do interact with any of these NPCs, they don't give you any meaningful responses. And as a creator who focuses on deep narratives, that makes pulling a compelling story out of the gameplay incredibly difficult. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the developers have been very transparent about this being early access. But inZOI made the exact same mistake. They poured all of their resources into visual aesthetics, the character creator, and the build tools, but they completely left the actual gameplay for the very end. That means a massive wave of players bought inZOI, realized there was nothing to actually do, and promptly ditched it. Paralives absolutely does not deserve that same fate, but ignoring the core gameplay loop is a massive mistake that I truly believe is going to cost them players. I'm fully committed to covering the amazing lore they're trying to build here, and I already know there are enough secrets hidden in Melino to fill a brand new complete history series on the channel down the line. I just hope the developers take this community feedback to heart before the final release. Once again, thank you for watching, and let me know in the comments if you're excited for more Paralives content in the future, and whether or not you're gonna play the game. If you want to support me, consider joining my Patreon for early access to my videos and to have your name featured here alongside my other supporters. You guys are the best. And if you want to watch me play Paralives and The Sims, catch me Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 PM Eastern at twitch.tv/mynameisGonz. So stay safe, stay cozy, and I'll see you in the next one.